Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar. My name is Sandrine. I am the Marketing and Communications Officer for the Global Databases at WIPO, and today I will show you how to build some complex queries in PATENTOSCOPE. As you will be muted during the webinar, if you have any questions, comments, if you would like to send feedback, please use the questions and answer little icon that you have in your control panel. Feel free to send your questions at any time during my presentation. I won't be able to look at the questions right away, but we will conclude today's webinar with a dedicated questions and answer session in which hopefully I'll be able to answer all your questions. If by the end of the webinar your question is still left unanswered, don't worry, I always make sure I take a look at the list of questions after the webinar, and then I will reply later on individually by email. About email address, this is our email address, pretty straightforward, patentscope@wipo.int. If you have questions, comments, or if you would like to provide feedback, feel free to use this email address. Today we will take a look together at how you can build more complex queries in PATENTOSCOPE and take your searches to the next level. I won't be able to show you everything that is possible to do in PATENTOSCOPE, but hopefully in the next about 30 minutes you will learn something new and hopefully you will find it useful. What we're going to take a look at, I'll show you some tricks that you can do when you use keyword searches. I will also show you how to add other languages in order to expand your searches, how to use the classification, and of course how to use many different fields, add chemical information, and combine all of those. So this is the plan for the webinar today. PATENTOSCOPE, this is the default search interface. You can find it here. This is the URL. You have it on the screen. Just as a reminder, you will find all the published PCT applications, so only the published ones, and then on top of this you will find data from 79 national and regional collections. This means that those countries share their own data with WIPO. For example, you will find the national collection of Canada. This means that you can search Canadian national data in PATENTOSCOPE, and you can also find the national phase entries of the different countries. It is completely free of charge. What you do in PATENTOSCOPE stays confidential between you and WIPO, and it's available to all provided you have an internet connection. So we will talk today about taking your searches to the next level, but there's still some things that you can do in the simple search. We'll take a look at this to begin with. Let's imagine that you're interested in finding some biometric authentication. Those are your two keywords. You're looking for some inventions related to those two keywords. So you enter those in ideally the full text. Remember, when you use the simple search, you have to select the field in which you're performing your search. This will produce some results. You have here your search, and then you have here the number of results. So we just entered two keywords, nothing special, just two simple keywords. Now we can work on those keywords. We can use some question marks in order to make sure that PATENTOSCOPE will retrieve those two keywords exactly in that order. And this will, of course, bring down the number of results. Then you can also tell PATENTOSCOPE in which order you would like to have those two keywords. We want to have biometric in front of authentication. So we use the operator before. By default, it will add 5 keywords between your two keywords, which means that it can be biometric and then 5 words and authentication. This is why here I put a 4 after the before to reduce those number of words that are in between my two keywords. And then again, this will provide another results list. Another thing you can do is something similar, but in this case, it will just make sure that the two keywords are close to each other. The same principle, it's 5 words in between your two keywords. If you add a new number like I did here, 4, you reduce that number. You can also increase it. The difference between this one and the one we did before is that this one will take into account those two keywords and the order is not relevant. So that's something else that you can do. So you can play with those operators in the simple search interface, and you can also start building a bit more advanced queries. Here we have the use of 2 different operators. So those are the Boolean operators, the operator and the operator or. So this is perfectly doable even in the simple search interface. So let's take a look at the result. So here we have again a new number of results because it's a different search. So also this shows you how important it is to build your queries. Depending on how you build them, then you will have different results. So let's take a closer look at this query, because actually this is something that you can build yourself, also using the more advanced search interfaces. So we have basically 2 sets of keywords. We have biometric authentication and biometric verification. We have the biometric in both, and then we enter that first, and then we have 2 keywords that are sort of synonyms, so we want to have those as well together with biometric. So we want to have and biometric, we definitely want to have it, and then we want to have authentication or verification. It can be either authentication or verification. If I write this in this way in PATENTOSCOPE, the system is unclear, and the questions are, which keywords go together? Is it biometric authentication in one block and then verification after or do we have biometric and then the block authentication and verification? We know, because we know what we want to enter, but PATENTOSCOPE doesn't know, so you have to tell PATENTOSCOPE how those keywords relate to each other, and to do so you need to use parentheses. This is what you have in the query on top. You have a first set of parentheses, the red ones. This is to make sure that all the keywords are searched in the field that you selected. If you don't put parentheses, then only the first keyword that follows immediately the field will be searched in that field. All the rest will be searched in different fields. So when you want to perform a search in one field, you have to make sure that you have everything in parentheses. And then we have a second set of parentheses in green. So we want to make sure that PATENTOSCOPE understands that it has to look for biometric in all the results, but then it can be linked with either authentication or verification. And we use, of course, the operator AND in order to link biometric with our 2 keywords, and in between those 2, or because it can be either one of them. And then we can take this to the next level and build even more complex queries. In this case, I kept the first part like we just looked at. Then I added recognition and fingerprint or facial or iris or voice. And then I added the operator AND NOT, password or PIN. So let's take a look again at this new query. I entered it here so that you know that you can do it in the simple search interface. We have two sets. We have an initial part. We tell PATENTOSCOPE what we would like to find, but we also tell PATENTOSCOPE what we don't want to have in the result list. So we're interested in all those keywords, biometric, that goes with authentication, verification, recognition, fingerprint, etc. But we don't want those keywords associated with password or PIN. And this is why we use and not. This is to tell PATENTOSCOPE we don't want whatever follows this operator. So this operator excludes what's after it. In our case, password or PIN. Again, you have the parentheses because we have two keywords, password and PIN. Then we take a look at what we actually want to find in our result list. So same principle as before, we need the big parenthesis in order to make sure that this entire set of keywords is searched within our field. This we looked at just before. We have the and the or. And then we have a second part, which is here, and we'll link with the operator or. Same principle, we use the common denominator, which is recognition, and then we tell PATENTOSCOPE which other keywords it should be linked to, and the or operator in order to link our two sets of keywords. So when you do build queries like those ones, what is key is where you put the parentheses. This allows to let PATENTOSCOPE know what exactly you're interested in. It can unfortunately, at least not yet, guess what you're interested in. So you have to make sure that you build those different blocks in order for the query to be as clear as possible. What did we just see? We need to use parentheses in order to make sure that whatever follows the field is included. We also use them to build those different blocks. If you use question mark, you will find an exact expression. You use near, you make sure two keywords are next to each other, because let's say you're interested in electric bicycle, but you have electric on page 1 of the document and then bicycle on page 200, then it's not really what you're interested in. There's no link between those two keywords. So near is a very useful operator when you need to build queries with different keywords. You can use before if it matters in which order the keywords appear, and we'll link all the keywords, so they all have to be included, as opposed to the operator or, where you tell PATENTOSCOPE that you want one or more of the keywords that you entered. And not, we saw an example, we want A but not B, and if you use not alone, you will have everything but B. There are some other little features in PATENTOSCOPE. Stemming, this is active by default in PATENTOSCOPE. It means that any queries you enter, unless you remove this feature, unticking it, this will be applied to your queries. If you enter support in PATENTOSCOPE as a keyword, in your result list you will have documents that contain supports, supporting, supported, etc. This is because the stemming removes common endings from the words that you enter. You can do this using wildcard. They're also supported in PATENTOSCOPE, and when you use wildcards, they automatically turn off the stemming. You can use the question mark to replace one character, or the star to replace one or more characters. You can also perform fuzzy searches. I'll show you this also, fuzzy searches with the tilde, so that you find misspelled information, or also error in the OCR. And then another option you have is to give more weight to a word or an entire phrase. In this example, on the left column, we search for information in the English title, EN_TI. We have car, the weighting factor 4, electric, the weighting factor 4, and battery. In this case, we want to have car and electric 4 times more, they are 4 times more important than battery. In the second example, electric car alone is 4 times more important than battery. All those will return the same amount of result. Even if you don't use any weighting factor, you will have exactly the same number of results. So this is what I did here to show you the difference between hearing aid and aid on the left hand side, and the same query with a weighting factor 10 on hearing. So hearing is 10 times more important than aid. The number of results is exactly the same. It's just the order in which the results appear in your result list that will be different. So this is something very useful if you're interested in having your documents ranked in a different order with an emphasis on a specific keyword. I mentioned wildcard and stemming. Stemming is a dominant feature in PATENTOSCOPE. We encourage users to keep the stemming active and not to build very complex queries with wildcards. If you're wondering if it would be better to use wildcards over the stemming, there's now a tool that you can use, wildcard versus stemming. You enter the keyword you're looking for, and then you will see below exactly what the stemming will return and what the same version with the wildcard would be, so that you can compare. You have below exactly the keywords that will be included in your result list. This allows you to define whether a search with wildcard would be better than using the stemming, as it is by default in PATENTOSCOPE. You find this tool in the help menu under PATENTOSCOPE help. You have it here, wildcard versus stemming. Alright, so we saw a couple of things that you can do with your keywords, many different little tricks that you can apply to your keywords. Now we did all this in the simple search. It is very doable, like you saw. There's one big limitation. You have to define one field. You have the list. You can select any of those fields except for front page, that is a mix of different fields. All the others, they just one field only. Here I try to summarize which part of the document the fields target. So you see the front page, you have the title, the abstract, the applicant, and some numbers. Publication date is just the publication date. So using the simple search, you will be limited if you need to combine your keyword search, for example, like we did, or your publication date with another field. Keyword and a publication date and an IPC code. This you cannot do in the simple search. The good news is there are other search interfaces. They are also easy to use, and I'll show you how. So a lot of what's on this slide to elevate your searches involve mixing different fields, whether it's to add another language, to use the classification, use manifold, add chemical information, combine all those. This involves mixing the fields, and this is what the field combination is all about. You have different fields available in all the drop-downs menu. A lot of fields are available. I entered part of our query. If it's too long, it won't fit. So if you have a very long query, you won't be able to fit it in here. You'll need to move to the advanced search interface that we will look at after that. The advantage here, you see right away at the bottom the number of results that your search will trigger. Here you see that I used one field and I entered all the different operators that we had. What you have to remember here in the field combination, you have to use the same operator here on the left hand side to link those different fields. You can link English text with international classification with publication. But you cannot say I want English text or the international classification and a publication date. This doesn't work. Within the field you can, but you cannot in between the fields. So here I did an example. I entered our text and then I added a publication date. And I'm using one operator. There's only two fields to connect, so one operator and it's fine. If I wanted to add something else, using the AND operator would work. And this is my new number of results. You can actually achieve the same thing using the simple search with our query. I entered it again in the full text. Then I went to the result list, and in the analysis, you can open this analysis by clicking the little graph button that you have next to the number of results. So on the left hand side, the upper side, then here I could select my other criteria, which was a publication date. You see here I have to scroll down because it goes a long way back. Now if you're looking at PATENTOSCOPE and you don't have this screen like me, this is because I changed my settings. Go to settings, and here you can change, in the result tab, you can change the number of columns that you see. So you can add additional information, and you can also increase the number of items you have in those columns. If you don't increase it, by default it's 10. So talking about publication date, you will see only 10 years. If you need to see more, you need to change your settings. So now, using the analysis, I was able to select the publication date, and I have the same number of results. So this is something that you can also do, starting with your simple search and using the analysis in order to add more information. Of course, there's a limitation when you do this. It's fine for you to select one item per column. Once you would like to have two items, let's say here I'm interested in 1981 but also 1982 as a publication date, I cannot select two here. I'll have to use the field combination, in which I can easily enter two publication dates linked with the operator OR, which is fine because it's within the search field and not in between fields. And again, I have the number of results right at the bottom, which is very convenient if you need to change. If you see, for example, that your number is very high, you can always add additional criteria, etc. here. This is the only interface where you actually see the number of results that your search will produce. So now we understand that using this field combination, you can use many different fields, but you're still limited in terms of linking those fields together, as you need to use one operator and one operator only. But again, there's a good news. There's the PATENTOSCOPE Advanced Search Interface. At first, it might be scary because it's a white box. There's nothing, unlike the other two where you have fields that you can select. Here, it's up to you to build your searches. For this, there's the query assistant. You see just below this white box on the right hand side, there's a query assistant that you can tick. This will help you add the fields. You can start typing keywords. Let's say you're interested in publication date. You can type publication date, and PATENTOSCOPE will turn this into the correct field. The other option is to go to the help menu and take a look at the field definition. You can search those by name so that you can find the one you're interested in. I entered the front page, and actually this gives me exactly where the search will be performed. So one of the things you can do to take your searches to the next level is use the classification. Why is this helping you? Because the classification is language neutral, so you might be able to find documents in other languages. So that's one of the advantages of using the classification. And also, if you don't have the right keywords, you might still find documents in the correct domain. So this is what I did here. So I entered in IPC classification. It's IC_EX because I'm looking exactly for a specific code. If you don't enter EX, it will give you all the documents within the class. And then I have this or my keywords. So this is one way to do it. The other way is to use just the classification so that you can find documents in other languages. This is the case here. This is a document from Brazil in Portuguese. And I always have the option to use the machine translation tool to initially translate the result list, and then you will find this machine translation tool button within each document. If you're interested in finding other language versions, finding document in languages you don't know, there's the cross-lingual expansion that was built by WIPO. Here you enter your keyword, you click the search button, it's available in the search menu, and then you will have this new query. It contains the different languages, but also synonyms. And this again will allow you to find documents in other languages. To see the full query, click this little icon. This allows you to see the entire query and also to edit it. If you're not interested in having documents, let's say in Korean, you can delete the part that has the Korean text, the Korean keywords. And again, you will find the machine translation in order to help you translate those documents that are in a language that you don't necessarily understand. Another option is to use WIPO Pearl. This is WIPO's terminology portal. It was also developed internally by a language specialist. I entered again our biometric identification. And here you have this useful button called Find in PATENTOSCOPE. When you click on those three little dots that you have on the right hand side, this will redirect you to PATENTOSCOPE with the search already performed for you, in this case in Japanese. So I'll show you now when you use the machine translation tool that I have been mentioning a few times. You can select the language you're interested in. There's also the option to use Google Translate if you prefer. You go to the settings menu and you're able to add also Google Translate. Then you will find this button within the document. Here it's the bibliographic data, and you also have it in the full text. Alright, so if you want to use WIPO Pearl, it's available in the tools menu under WIPO Pearl. Still about languages, something you can do that is very useful is to use the patent family information. Let's say you perform your search in English, you found an interesting document, you open it, and when available you will have this family tab. Not all documents have family information, but when they do, you can find some very useful information. In this case, for example, we can find the name of the applicant written in Japanese and in Korean. You can then copy the name in Korean, you go back to the field combination and you select the applicant name field and you just paste what you copied, and this will return over 200 results, which gives you another result set that could have documents of interest. So those are the options you have to find documents in other languages. Also remember, when you perform a search, if you use the name of the applicant in Latin character, PATENTOSCOPE will only find documents in which the name is written like you searched it. It will not do the translation, so you will miss, for example, all the documents that don't have the name as you entered it. All right, and then for those of you who are interested in chemical, pharmaceutical information, what you could do, you can search with a keyword, simple keyword, aspirin. You can search even in the simple search interface. You will have a certain number of results. But PATENTOSCOPE also includes the chemical compound search. The good news is you don't have to be a chemist. If you are one, you can draw like you would draw on paper. But you can also upload a structure, or you can convert. This is what I did here. I entered the compound name, aspirin, simple, and then PATENTOSCOPE will transform it into an INCHI key, which is a textual identifier specifically for each compound. So this is the INCHI key for aspirin. So I'm retrieving many results, and I can still combine this with a keyword search. So this is what I did here. I combine it with just the text. And this is my final number of results. So this is what I wanted to show you today. You have lots of options. You see there's a lot you can do with your keywords, the way you build your searches. You can combine, you can use one tool like Clear, which will help you find synonyms and also translation. And then once you have your result, you can always go back to the search bar where you have the search you performed, and you can edit it in order to narrow down your searches. We saw that using the analysis, this little graph button that you have on top next to the number of results, also allows you to narrow down your search. And key when you do any IP searches, in our case patent documents, you need to know exactly what you're searching. In our case, PATENTOSCOPE, you'll find the help menu under PATENTOSCOPE help, data coverage, and this will show you exactly the content of the database. The total number, I put it here in the middle, it's available at the bottom. You need to scroll down. You have what is available, what is the frequency of the update, when was the last information made available, etc. Also remember that in PATENTOSCOPE it's not only published PCT application and the national phase entries, it's also all those national and regional offices that share data with WIPO so that we can make it available to you, our users. In PATENTOSCOPE, there's also non-patent literature that can also help you find additional information presented in a different way than the typical patent document. So this is something also very useful. Remember to add it to your searches. You can either do it in the result list. You just click where it says include NPL false. It means that at the moment NPL is not included. When you click on it, you have the option to tick the box, or in the field combination and in the advanced search interface, you can tick the box so that you have include NPL. If you would be interested in seeing only NPL information, use the analysis tab, where NPL will be available as one of the items that you can click on in order to select it. I mentioned it a couple of times, the help page. So under help, this you find on the top right hand side, then PATENTOSCOPE help. There's a lot of information here. You have a navigation menu on top. You have this part, very useful, how to search. You have a user's guide. This is where I showed you the field definition and the wildcard versus stemming tool. You also have some tutorials, some tips and tricks. Those are very short videos showing you different features of PATENTOSCOPE. and also you can do some practical exercises to see how well you know PATENTOSCOPE. This is available online. This is what they look like. And if you are into exercises, there's also some exercises booklet. They two, one from last year, end of last year, and one from the year before. With the two, you will have the exercises, and then at the end there are the solutions, so that you can have an idea whether what you did is what was meant to be. So if you wanna take a look, I encourage you. It's very interesting, and it can be challenging, and it will show you how well you can use PATENTOSCOPE. There's a chat if you want to chat with us. It's available on Monday from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Central European Time. And then there will be, of course, some new webinars. There are no upcoming ones. This is a print screen that I took a while ago. I have to plan the next few webinars. If you have any suggestions, anything you would like me to address, don't hesitate to let me know. I will try to address it as much as I can. I will probably do some practical exercises in the summer, like I've been doing for the past 3 or 4 years. So we do together some practical exercises. It's just not you looking at the screen. I give you some exercises, then we'll look at the solutions together. If you're interested in slides, they are available in all PATENTOSCOPE webinars. You have to find a session of interest, and then the slides will be available. And then just 2 more things. We have also the global brand database and global design database. Same principle as PATENTOSCOPE. They're free of charge, available to all. They include both WIPO data and data shared by national and regional offices. We do some webinars. If you're interested in the global brand database, there's actually a webinar tomorrow. You won't find it here on this. When you click on this one, you have to go to the meetings menu on the main WIPO website. It's actually organized by our colleague from Madrid. So if you're interested in the global brand database, there's a chance tomorrow. And this concludes my part. So now we have a couple of minutes for your questions. Let me see if you sent me any questions while I was speaking. All right, so the question about the slides, yes, they will be posted on our website, here at the website. So for any questions related to legal aspect, I'm not the right person to answer this, unfortunately. I would encourage you to go on the WIPO website and select in the contact form the topic of interest, so that my colleagues can get back to you. You can ask questions, but they have to be written. You are muted. This is how it works with webinar. There are many attendees, so if we give the floor, it gets out of control. So I encourage you to send the question here, or you can also email us if you prefer. I'll show you our email address so that you can also email us. The webinar was not recorded, so you will have access to the slides. There's a question about the operator have to be in capital letters. It's the preferred way of doing it, so that there's a distinction. There's a comment about a keyword that appears when you use the English text, even if the keyword is not English or typical English. This is because it's found in documents that are classified under English, and it will also find typos and things like that. So it's not a perfect world. So what is considered as an English document, even if it's not the proper English word, it will come out when you use an English field. So there's a question about biometric. The person entered biometric in quotes, and the result still shows biometrics. Why is that? You should know the answer. It's something I actually addressed. Anyone can let us know why this is the case? Why do you have, when you put between quotes biometric, you still have biometrics in the result list? Anyone has an idea as to why this is happening when you put quotes? Yes, very good. Some people follow very well. I'm very happy. It's because of the stemming. Stemming is active by default, so a plural form will be included by default. Unless you turn it off, which is also possible. All right, many questions. Thank you so much. It's a lot of work, but I'm glad I had I triggered some interest. Yes, stemming is very helpful. You don't have to think about all the possible ways using those wildcards. This is why we implemented this. And remember, you have this stemming versus wildcard tool that is very, very useful. You can enter the keyword you think about using, you can enter it, and then you will see exactly what will be included in your result list. All right, so let me just see if I can share my screen so that I can, there's a question of where to untick the stemming. So let me do this. All right, hopefully you see my screen now. Oh no, still not. Let me do it again. Oh, why is this stuck? All right, let me try that again. All right, so let's go on PATENTOSCOPE. So where to untick the stemming? If you use the simple search, your options are limited when you start your search. Have in the result list all those items are clickable. Whether I click on office, language, it will always open the same refine option. And here you see it says stemming true. So if you don't want to use the stemming, just untick it here. But if you use either the advanced, you have it here, or if you use the fill combination, same, you have the option to untick the stemming. Also, the minute you start using wildcards, it will be automatically turned off. There's a question still about the stemming. So the stemming will use the root form of the word. So depending on the OCR or the misspelled problem, it might not retrieve those. It depends on where those issues are with the OCR or with the spelling. Stemming really uses the root form. So if it's happening anywhere else, this is not going to be covered. For this, you need to use the fuzzy search. There's a comment about claims. So claims exactly is it's not one of the fields available here in the simple search. You will have to go to the field combination where you can find the claims. So it depends then on the language. You have the Chinese claims, you have it's all by language. There's a question about a marker search. So to do a marker search, I need to be logged in. For any chemical search, you need to be logged in. Chemical compound. So I'm still using aspirin, a very limited chemical knowledge. So what you have to do, you come here, and then you have the Marcus search option down here. There's a question about NPL. So the NPL, I can show you the NPL content at the moment. So we have IEEE. So for IEEE, it will depend on if it's an open access, you will be able to go to the IEEE website and see it. But if it's a paying document, you will have to pay. It's not because you come via PATENTOSCOPE that it will all of a sudden be free of charge. What we did with IEEE, we indexed the documents, so the search is performed within the document, but you cannot actually see it. You know it exists, and you have to go to their website. There's a question about the full text. Does it include the abstract? This is actually a good question. I have a doubt now. Yes, it does, but you can see it here. If we enter English all text, English, so any English text, and you also have here to which type of document the field applies, if it works for NPL, national, and the PCT. Then there's a question about the difference between and the operators, and not. So if we search in English all text and we say one car and not bicycle, remember to put the parenthesis, otherwise what will happen? Only car will be searched in English all text, so in and not. So in this case, we're gonna have document about car which do not have the keyword bicycle. Now if I change this to this, it means that I'm looking for everything, all patent documents that do not have bicycle. So it's everything but the keyword you enter, and in the other case you have one keyword and not and the keyword you don't want, but you have a starting point, not everything. All right. Any other questions? Let me see. I see a couple more. If you're interested in statistics about the national phase entries, you can find this information also here. There's a dedicated page for national phase entries. So you have the coverage. You have the office, you have the from to and the number. So this is in the help menu, PATENTOSCOPE help, and then you can go here, data coverage, and you have a dedicated item for national phase entries. So if you're interested in getting enrolled in tomorrow's webinar, the one on the global brand database, can give it a try to find it on the WIPO website. There must be workshop and seminar maybe, and then Madrid system webinars. Interesting. I will look it up for you and I will send it to you, because like this I'm not sure where to find it. All right, other question, certificate of participation, unfortunately no. A webinar on chemical searches. Do I intend to run such a webinar? Sure. This is one of the topics that we address at least once or twice a year. So this could be one of the next one we do. Sure. So there's a request for me to consider a section on what PATENTOSCOPE cannot do. This is not really the best way to promote a tool, so I would be reluctant, and it's also difficult for me to imagine what PATENTOSCOPE cannot do. I'm aware of some of the features that might not be available, but to do a section on this is a bit tricky. The exercise booklets, so they're here. So that's the PATENTOSCOPE web page and not the interface. So we have the interface here and then the PATENTOSCOPE web page here, and the booklets are just here. We will add very soon a new section containing all predefined searches. They are currently on AI, on COVID-19. There's also the IPC Green Inventory, which also suggests IPC codes related to green technologies. And for World IP Day, taking place on April 26th, we're preparing some predefined queries related to SDGs. So is there a difference between today's webinar and the one on the 18th? No, it's just a question of time zone. So for Europeans, they don't have any issue, they can attend any, but for Asia and America, they have to have two. So this is why they have to. It's the same content, the same slide. I might not say exactly the same words, but yes, it's the same content. Yes, you can search using the Japanese classification term. This is also something available here. Let me see the FI. No, where is it? Is it under classification? Here, you have it here. The slides will be posted on our website, the webinar page. The slide will be posted here. You have all PATENTOSCOPE webinar, and if you go to previous sessions, you have the documents here. Is there another question? Is there a special program needed for generating a chemical structure for searching? No, you can draw it, or if you have the structure on your computer, you can just go ahead and upload it. This is one of the options. You have it here, upload a structure. There's a question, is there a follow-up seminar? What do you mean by a follow-up seminar? There's a question about notices of official notices or document issued by various national and regional offices. You mean related to patent documents or just official documentation? So again, the slides, they will be posted here on our website. Will be posted here on our website. All right. Ooh, it's getting late, so I'm gonna take 2 more questions, and then the rest I'll deal by email. There are many questions. Thank you so much. So there's a question about a result visualization tool like Word Cloud. There's not such a thing. The only thing we have in terms of analysis is what I showed you here. In the results, you have the analysis, which gives you a table, but also you have some charts available and a time series. But this is what we have in terms of analysis. The question about searching by image, not in PATENTOSCOPE. This is currently available only in the global brand database, soon in the design database, but not in PATENTOSCOPE. If you want to print your results, you have to go to, this is how you can, let me see, download your result. You can download your result here. You can, to a certain extent, customize your result list by going to download. Download, you have the downloadable fields. If you have questions related to the coverage, this you can easily find in the PATENTOSCOPE help, and you have here the data coverage. This shows you national collection. This shows you the collections currently available in PATENTOSCOPE. There's 79 at the moment, and PCT. All right, so I apologize for those of you who still have unanswered questions. This is a lot of questions. I'm very happy, and I'll make sure that I will get back to you all. Don't worry, just give me a couple of hours. So tomorrow morning, I'll get at it. And yes, with this, I will conclude today's webinar. I will try to go back to my slides if I manage to do this. Am I going to manage to go back to my slides? Let's see. Here we go. Share. I wanted to show you one more time our email address, patentscope@wipo.int. If you have any questions, concern, or feedback, for those of you who still have questions, don't worry, I'll get back to you before the end of the week. And with this, I conclude today's webinar. Thank you very much for joining me today. Thank you for all the great questions. I hope that you learned something new. I hope that you will use PATENTOSCOPE and find it useful. Let us know if you would like to have some features in PATENTOSCOPE. Also, if you would like me to address specific webinars. There was a request for chemical searches. This was well taken into account. And with this, I wish you a very good night or a very good day, depending on your location. And goodbye for now.